Welcome back to another episode of Dial the Gate, the Stargate Oral History Project. My name is David Reed. Really appreciate you joining me here for this one. Peter Bodnarus, Art Director for Stargate SG-1 and Stargate Atlantis, has returned to the show. Welcome back, sir. How are you?
Great to be back. Great to be back.
I'm thrilled to have you. I did not expect to go for 2 rounds. I got to be perfectly honest. We started going through this stuff and really just jiving, and there was no section that I wanted to cut. And so last episode, which no one saw this piece, I cut out, but it was like, it was a plea to return. It's like, can we just set Atlantis aside, focus on SG-1 and some of this other stuff? Because I really think that we've got a lot here to share, and I just really appreciate you taking so much time.
Well, I certainly appreciate the interest that the fans are showing in the design of Atlantis and SG-1.
So never underestimate a Stargate fan's desire to drill down as deep as possible into the minutia of their show. It's just a constant in the universe, and the more that behind the scenes people provide, the more we want. And it is an Ouroboros? Is that what it is? It just keeps on going. So I appreciate you being so willing to share not just the Stargate stuff, but all other kinds of things that you have, which we're going to be getting into momentarily here.
Excellent, excellent.
So you were talking about physical memorabilia that you had from your time from production.
Yes. So while I was on Stargate, we had a fantastically talented and energetic graphic designer, Godfrey.
Boyd.
And you know Boyd, right?
I've been trying to get him on. He's very busy with his boats.
He's a good lifer. That man has got it dialed in, pun intended. So as we were, so he created some, patches, sort of, uniform patches for us that we sort of were very happy to sort of, put on our clothes or just to have here in the office. And we also had these lovely sort of foil stickers.
Oh, those were cool.
This one. And I really like the Pegasus logo for Atlantis. I thought that was quite a successful, the way we combined sort of the Chiron with the wings of Pegasus. That's gorgeous.
That's a replica of the one that sat in Dr. Weir's office. I think this was created in season 2, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, yes, it was.
But you can see even the CNC'd bits, in between the wings, you can still see where the CNC machine kind of drilled in, and that remains intact in this, even though it's a replica. The quality of the stuff that they were producing, I mean, Bridget said it before I did, that you guys could have made stuff for NASA. It's just wild, the quality.
We had a fantastic, so we had very talented crew, but we also had this fantastic special effects builder and props builder. Paco is his name. And the guy was just a genius, and electronics and 3D milling, 3D. He was on the cutting edge of things that are kind of commonplace now.
Pun intended.
Sorry?
Pun intended.
Yes, yes. And so now we had all kinds of like 3D milled beautiful things, electronics. Like he rigged the Stargate in Atlantis. Functioned electronically, and he ran it from his iPad, which in 2004 was like, who is this person?
So this would have been a Palm Pilot in 2004.
Palm Pilot,
yes, yeah, because the SGU gate was rigged from a Palm Pilot. So
yeah. So
absolutely amazing.
The Atlantis gate was rigged from a Palm Pilot, and the guy was just awe-inspiring. So that's what kind of kept me humble. I'm going to tell you that. Because you sort of look back at all the work that you did, and you're like, that's some kind of cool stuff here. Then you think about what other people did, and you're like, okay, I was one of many.
Well, one of many who are seeing the work that everyone else is producing, and saying, if there's a part of you that's like, can I do better? can I up my game
Exactly.
here? What can I
Exactly.
do to make him go? Not him go, I wish I was doing that, but him go, whoa, now I want to do
Exactly.
something cool to top that.
And we're all
So,
doing whoa. So this is a patch that Boyd made. It was
oh,
for
is
I
this
think
the
it's
Korolev?
Daedalus and Korolev.
Oh
Yeah,
my
Korolev.
gosh, I've never seen. Okay, Peter, stop. Halt everything. There's only a certain number of patches for the ships that were made. I have never seen one designed for Korolev. The Russian officers did not wear them. So if you could bring that closer to the camera, I and a bunch of us would really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Wow. That is magic. A concept art design for Korolev.
hmm
Very cool, Peter. Thank you for sharing that.
And again, the actual profile of the ship was taken from one of my drawings, so I
Yes.
was very excited about that.
Yes.
This is my personal so my office here is kind of a vault of all kinds of secret stuff here, and pun intended. And this is one of my favorites. This was the F302 patch that was made for season 6, and I got a kick out of that. And again, Boyd took my artwork and he just sort of used that to create the graphic, and
Wow.
we really sort of really enjoyed. That was a lot of fun.
His patches were amazing over the years. I've been trying to get Boyd on and Paco on, just keep on hammering away. So I
Yeah,
appreciate you
they're
sharing those.
my pleasure, my pleasure. So that was and that's kind of what we were, exactly this thing where we're kind of, inspiring each other to sort of come up with, things that are telling the story and may get used or may not get used. I mean, this is one of the things. So we called it the strategic fighter wing. I'm not even sure if that's. I'm sure there's military people out there to be like, you cannot. It's a tactical fighter wing. You cannot have a strategic. But we call it a strategic fighter wing because we're defending the whole damn planet.
This is
Okay.
true. And the Wraith
And
Waxers for SG-1. So
the
yeah,
what? Sorry.
Wraith Wraith Waxers for SGA.
Eight waxers. Yeah, and we had the
Yeah,
snake skinners for
SG-1.
SG-1, and so
Yeah,
this was one of the first kind of patches. This was like one of the test patches.
very cool.
Um, One of the thing I wanted to say about the Pegasus logo is I'm pretty sure that was Bridget's design. I think that was her concept. I think she has a horse farm, and
Yes,
so
she does.
she's like, I got this.
Just add wings.
Just that. Yeah.
No, it's a great look because where'd it go? The yeah the wings kind of invoke the wings on the top of the chevron because the
Well,
chevrons
that's what
have
I think.
wings,
Yep,
and
that's what makes
so
it so successful.
yeah, she bends it into both, and I'm sure the horse is modeled after one of hers. It's just a beautiful piece,
I
and
believe that's old paint.
wouldn't be surprised. Yeah. We have some doodles that you were doing that you sent over to me last night. We probably should start off with them because a lot of them led into other concepts for Stargate that you were working on, and some are out there. I mean, like some Iron Giant inspiration was going on in there or something in your mind. I'd really love to have a look.
I think it was. I think it was. Yeah. Let's
Let's
have
have
a
a
look.
look here. That's the wrong one.
Oh, depends on what
Um,
you're talking about. So that's
Wait a second. Okay, so that's SGA. So it is the right one. Okay, so this looks like well, it says Ancient Tech Console. So
so
that's probably what
we
it
played
is.
with a number of concepts for the ancient tech consoles. This one was really heavily inspired by I'm going to say Space 1999, and again, Brad was like, we got to step away from that a bit, and we got to get into more of the crystalline. But that was kind of just like a starting point for some of the ancient tech ideas.
Yeah, no, I don't know who started this, but the cast called them grand pianos.
That's that's a great name. Yeah, and that's kind of what we, because when we're designing these things, the number one thing is it has to be able to work for the actors to tell a story.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we sort of, there's this idea that the ancient technology was kind of, almost got grown out of crystals. So we sort of, there was all this sort of crystalline kind of, and we gave it this kind of expansiveness. And I think that was drawing on that my experience on SG-1, where we had the guest actor who was just taking this thing that was inert and just bringing it to life. And what we tried to do with those consoles is give opportunity for interaction.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, you succeeded.
Excellent.
The front of the Daedalus.
Yeah, so that was my first, before I even started doing any kind of 3D modeling, that was my sort of first kind of concept sketch. So what we did with the Daedalus is we took the Prometheus set and we replaced the front window, and I think we sort of expanded and increased the volume and sort of replaced the front window. So that was just, it came to me, it was just in a fever dream. I'm just like, what if it was this like radial thing? And, it had this kind of sense, again, thinking about, starting with the engines, right?
Sure.
Babies, it's got, there's movement, right? And so that's kind of what was sort of driving that idea.
Was there a mandate from upstairs, or down the hall, I should say, to make the windows bigger? Or was this your thought? The front windows really should be bigger. We should be able to see more stuff because we're opening to a battle.
Yes. To make it, and also, not to have them point down to the studio floor.
Yeah.
In the original kind of Prometheus, I have the windows tilting downward, which makes sense when you're a terrestrial battleship, and the whole point of those windows, you see how on ships the windows kind of point downwards.
Mm-hmm.
That's to prevent reflection, so you're not looking at sort of reflections from the inside of the bridge onto the windows.
Yes.
It makes sense that way, but it doesn't make sense when you're on a sound stage and you're sort of, you want to look up to the blue screen, not down to the stage floor. So that you see, we've got a console at the bottom, so we're hiding the stage floor, and then we're opening up to the heavens.
The thing that there's a couple of things that stick with me with you bringing up the engines, kind of like in the design of the shape of the kind of spokes of the front window. Since we last spoke, your line that Daedalus was our first attempt to have this thing reach across the universe. For whatever reason, that has stuck in my head since the last time we talked. But even in the Siege Part 3, when you can tell they're still figuring it out, because the plexi behind Caldwell and Shepard is still is reflecting the flashes of the explosions. You can clearly see the lights in the reflection. So even in that first episode, they're still dialing it in terms of how it is that they're going to pull this off.
Yes.
Just like watching, the first couple of seasons, or at least the first season of Next Generation, you can really see how they're having, especially in Blu-ray now, you can see where they're putting these black cardboard or stickers over where the lights would be reflecting, and haven't figured out how to pull it off yet. So it takes a while to dial this stuff in, a lot of trial and error.
Oh my God, and it's recorded for all time. Are trying to figure this stuff out.
You know what? Hey, it's something that people can point to as an Easter egg. So
yeah, there you go. You go. Yeah.
Who is this?
That is William and a giant robot dog.
Do you have a William?
I have a William. So that William in that sketch, he would have been about 3 years old. And he is now 22 years old, and he's actually just finished design school.
Of course.
Yeah. So I was playing around with concepts and big robots, and he saw this and he was like, I want a robot. So I drew a picture of him with a giant robot dog, and he thought that was pretty great.
It is pretty awesome. How familiar are you with the Half-Life video game series?
Not at all, but maybe subconsciously.
They have a character called Dog. He looks nothing like this, but he's about the height in terms of the size comparison. So, very cool. Whoa. Little
The
Borg in
Genii
there.
Genii labor robot. Yeah, that again, just playing with ideas.
Yeah.
I think, like you said, I think this would have been about the time that Iron Giant was
Around that time.
around that time, and yeah, it was just sort of thinking about potential concepts that I could pitch.
Right. If the Genii kept their technology underground, they might have giant mechs like this or automatons helping to run things underground.
Yeah,
Um,
and you'll notice that the guy next to him is pretty much an Amish farmer.
exactly.
He's got the coveralls and the broad brimmed hat, and he's pretty proud.
Oh,
He's
for
got
sure. You can see it's industrial. He's got a smokestack coming out of it. It's a really cool idea. But I bet John Lennox would have been like, do we have the budget for this?
yeah, no, we don't. We don't have it. I think I when I was a kid, I used to watch Captain Scarlet and and it was the show was like the illustrations at the beginning and the end of the show were always more interesting than the actual show itself.
You're keying off of that. I
Yeah, I'm
understand.
like, what? If it's just pen and paper, why not just shoot for the moon and just have some fun, and maybe it'll spark something else that'll fit in the budget.
That's it. That's it. And I can tell you in many cases where I saw that, where particularly Ken Rabehl would design stuff and it almost always got used in something else later. There was a character in season two early on that Dwight Schultz played called the Keeper. He was this
Hmm.
alien with this, he had these flaps on his face and
Hmm.
a really interesting hat. Dwight got to wear the hat, but he didn't do the flaps on the face. That went with a race later on called the Spirits. So stuff just comes back around. I like that, but not now. So let's
Exactly.
bookmark this.
And Ken, honestly, Ken loom large in our world, uh,
Yeah,
because he was incredibly prolific and
miss
kind
him.
of, and yes, and may he rest in peace. He was prolific and fearless, and he would just pitch things, and it would fly or it wouldn't, and he wouldn't get fussed about it.
Hmm.
And I took that from him, where I'm like, you know what? I'll pitch it. If it flies, it flies. If it doesn't, maybe it'll show. And like I said, things are showing up long after I've left the show. I'm like, wait a minute. I thought we didn't have the money. Oh, I guess they have the money now.
Well, that's the thing, that their budgets grew as the show grew because the popularity of the show was really helping to fuel that. It was a
Mhm.
reciprocal effect. But you are not the first person who has made that statement to be about Ken. Richard Hugh Dolan was actually the one who first said something along the lines of he was never precious. It was very hard to ruffle his feathers. He was
Yeah.
creating content, and I think part of his brain was like, well, if they don't want that, I can file it away, and use it perhaps for something. Well, I mean, I don't know if you can do that as artists. It may not be in your contract so that you can, or it may be. But that was really, I've really gotten that impression over hearing people who worked with him. I never got to meet him personally, but yeah,
Mhm.
just
Yeah.
amazing, amazing
And
artist.
and that's what I think that's kind of like my son just finished his design program, and he was actually being taught by some of the people that I went to architecture school with, and we found it very sort of our education was very flawed, and a lot of those things kind of have been attended to. Like one of the things that William learned in school was they would have a design program, design something, make it beautiful, great. Now give me 10 more,
Right.
and and it's iteration and kind of, and the cruel thing is you have to be able to kill your precious ones. You have to be able to kind of, if you fall in love with your stuff, you're not going to make it. It's going to be a painful experience. So what's so fantastic about a show like this, what's happening now, is that I am now free to love these orphans.
Right. Absolutely. No, they're not garbage. They were just
No,
they were
not at
just
all, not at
changed for
all.
something else. But isn't
Yeah.
there a risk there of becoming I want to tangent for a second if I may. Isn't there a
Mhm.
risk of becoming callous to it? Well, I don't want to fall in love with my work anymore because I can't strike the emotional balance in my heart, so I'm just going to create just stuff. is there a potential there of losing the spark that makes it brilliant to begin with if you go too far the other way and become desensitized to the critiquing process? Or is that a myth?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. And if you're in a situation where there's a certain amount of uh I mean, healthy competition is important, but if you're in
Mm.
a place where there's kind of unhealthy competitiveness
Toxic.
and if it's a toxic environment, yeah, you'll be beaten down. Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. For me though, what I've done sort of what I've had to sort of or what I've gradually become aware of is that you have to sort of see the value in the process. And then the attention you get afterwards needs to be like kind of icing on the cake.
I see.
You know,
You can't just be going for that. You
if
have to
you're
be
doing
going for
this,
your own edification and creation.
exactly.
Okay.
If you're there for the attaboys, you'll get them, but not always and not consistently.
Okay.
And you're not going to hit the nail every time, even if you're someone as fantastically talented as Ken Rabehl. You sometimes you don't understand what they're actually asking for, or your own ideas get in the way of kind of what the story is. And you have to be able to kind of, you know, have confidence and trust your own judgment, and also acknowledge that, you don't have all the data, right? There was a meeting that you weren't sitting in on where they specifically said they can't have the banana shaped hats, and you're in love with the banana shaped hats, and they're like, no bananas, no hats. And then where we've seen enough purple, there's just too much purple, right? And you're like, you love
But
purple.
those things come up, you
And those
know?
things come up, right? And you have to be able to kind of acknowledge that um, there's kind of a creative and storytelling ecosystem that you're part of, if
Green
that makes
is, to extend that, for instance, green is probably my least favorite color.
sense. Hmm.
I mean, Atlantis was mostly green in many cases. So there would be
I love
things
green.
that you would have to set aside in your
Yeah.
mind if you preferentially weren't crazy about it, but this is what's needed for this project.
Yeah, like for Prometheus, the interior of the Prometheus, we had all these different shades of gray because it's a military ship. Um,
Yeah, it looks like an
that
aircraft carrier in space.
It looks like an aircraft carrier in space, but that's problematic from a cinematic point of view,
Yeah.
right? Where you've got these monotone kind of backgrounds. So when we did the gate room for Atlantis, we were Bridget was drawing on Frank Lloyd Wright,
Yes.
and so again we had a subdued color palette, but we had a color palette. We had there was the stained glass, and there
Yeah.
was so um, it wasn't all gray, and it wasn't kind of like a circus tent, but it struck a balance between those two, and that's kind of how we sort of approach things. Where I think Prometheus was correct.
Hmm.
Prometheus was correct, but also you can't build an entire it's part of a larger show where you're
Hmm.
contrasting that with other color palettes and other kind of shape languages.
Yeah, and Daedalus, the 302s, they all kind of followed that aesthetic of gray on black against stars. You know, I go back to something you said earlier.
Sure.
I'm curious as to how, and maybe this never happened to you. That particular production office would handle people going, "I don't get this," or maybe this never happened. You're telling me you want something. I'm not getting this direction. How much bandwidth would you have to have people assist in reinterpreting their idea for you to, or did you not ever have that issue? Like what it is that they're asking for? Like what is it that you want me to create? I guess I need more information. Or were they ever like A, B, C, D, E? Okay, got it.
It depends on kind of how important it was.
Okay.
I think the like the Puddle Jumper,
Yeah.
we had amazingly sort of clear idea of what that thing was going to look like, and I think it came out a lot less dynamic and energetic than we had intended. And I
Okay.
think that was a product of what it was. It was actually it was a physical set. It was a room that we were, it was the TARDIS.
Yeah.
Uh, and that we were dragging it like, and we would put it on the back of a truck and bring it to locations. And so it ended up becoming a little more TARDIS-like in its form. But if you go to like the original concept art, I mean, the raking angle of the nose was
Much
like
greater.
20 degrees or something. It was, again, it was this idea of like, for me, it was a knife. This like, if you look at like an X-Acto knife, that's kind of was the
Yeah.
that was that
That
was kind of
angle
what
of
it was.
attack.
The angle of attack for an X-Acto knife,
Yeah.
where basically you've got this surgical instrument kind of piercing the fabric of space.
Wow.
And so that was but crystalline, right? So
Yeah.
like, they have these like super high tech, oh, I dare I say, but
The
like,
GAC boxes that they would pull down in the back.
no, I was thinking more like, I'm thinking of concept,
Ah,
like you have these like blades that are made from obsidian, right?
okay.
So you think of blades that are made from crystals. So the idea, what it was, is it was kind of piercing kind of the fabric of space. But in the end, it ended up becoming, not so aggressive and dynamic, just because of the nature of what it had to do to get the story told.
Well, you're actually making me think of some of the items that we're about to see in a little while here, particularly with the Wraith ships. You're invoking those images later on in your design, so I can see you playing around with that. Just to make this on the record moving forward, Bridget McGuire said that she designed the Puddle Jumper, or her initial concept for the shape was I think a loom for a shuttle. You know, with those things that they do this.
Yes, well, my wife is actually a weaver, and
All
this is a
right.
shuttle. This is a shuttle. And you could see the sort of where
Wow.
we're sort of taking that sort of idea of that kind of shape, and it's not as aggressive as the kind of the as what I had sort of done in my original sketch, but you can see the how it's telling that story.
Mm-hmm. It just signifies movement.
It does, and it's carrying things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like my original sketch for the puddle jumpers, it's honestly it's a little bit more of a fighter than a shuttle. It's you're gonna get two guys in their tops, right? And whereas for this, I mean, it's there's a lot of room in there for carrying people and information and fabric.
You never know. Those Athosians may be making some quilt runs. All right. That's really funny. Yeah, we're going to
Yeah.
get to all of this concept art here in just a little bit. Let's go ahead and see what else you got here. That looks a lot like the Iron Giant to me.
Yeah, that does have that kind of a vibe. I think though that was more from Captain something in the World of Tomorrow.
Oh,
The
Captain. Oh God, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, with Jude
Yeah,
Law and Angelina
Jude
Jolie.
Law. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a little bit more kind of inspired by those guys. Again, I had a 3-year-old kid at home, and boy, did he love it when I drew robots.
For sure. Sky Captain in the World of Tomorrow. Yeah.
Guy Captain and World of Tomorrow.
Very
Exactly.
cool. This one's a little harder to tell.
So that is that's just a ship from. I was thinking about more from like a kind of space race type. And
Yes.
that's just I was sitting in a meeting and sketching on my script, and the director of photography really loved that image. So I think that might have been the genesis for I think for some other ships as well. But
Wow.
again, it's one of those things where I start with kind of a fairly simple shape. In this case, it's like kind of almost like a knob, and then I just sort of see what I can do to bring some life into it.
Ooh.
So this was season 6, SG-1. It was some sort of Goa'uld technology. They didn't know what it was, and they were trying to figure it out. And we needed some kind of like blueprints, but from another civilization. So I created this object I just sketched it, then I created it in 3D, and then I brought it into a drafting program, and I was, okay, what if their drawings are like, in perspective, or it was
Mm,
just a lot of abstract fun.
wow.
For the text, I went to the NASA website, and I
Ah.
downloaded one of the mission manuals from Apollo,
Oh, how
and
cool.
I just copied and paste. And this was the beginning of we had a lot of fun with this, and Boyd was kind of got behind that as well, where we had all these like letter number combinations, NA nav 001-2, and so they had NASA had all these 3-letter acronyms that were,
Yes.
who knew what they meant, but they sure sounded cool. And so we just started doing that all over for our ships. We had all kinds of, for identifying, the drawers and the or the kind of panels. We'd have the kind of the ID panel, and it
Yeah,
would all
all the
be
pull panels, especially on like Prometheus and Daedalus, had identification numbers so that on some database you could pull up, the documents to deal with that panel.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. And for us, it's like, okay, how do these letters look good? Yep, those numbers look good. Yep, go.
yeah. This reminds me, I wonder if this has to do with Nightwalkers. I wonder if this has to do with the
I think
Goa'uld spaceship that they were trying to build.
I think it might be that one.
That's cool. All right. Ooh.
Yeah, that's Nightwalkers. Yeah, that's you can see, just the top image was the start of the idea. You see we've got that kind of triangular sort of tube,
Yes.
and then lower on is kind of that same idea, just taken a little, just sort of refined a little bit.
And the lower left, or were you guys wanting to make sure
Yeah.
that it could fit through an office door with a mail slot?
Okay, so sketchbooks are actually work. Like, it's not just sitting at my desk going, huh, I wonder
I
what
think
I.
I'll draw a door today, something more pedestrian.
And no, literally, it's a lot of it is like, dude, we need a door in like
Let's see.
5. We got to start building this door, and I need something in
Yeah.
10. So I'll just open up my sketchbook, I'll draw it, I'll photocopy it,
Yeah.
and I'll say, there you go.
It's right in front of you. Well, that makes a lot of sense, for sure. This is what you were working on the day.
Yeah.
Well, and that's also good too, because you're saving paper. All
But
right.
it also talks about, sort of my work where, playing around designing props is important, but also making sure that there's scenery is getting built is really important.
And I love the mundane against the fantastical in Stargate. There's just something about spaceship and door, Earth door. Jeez.
Well, if anyone's got small kid, everyone's got who's raised a family knows all about the fantastical and the mundane living side by side.
For sure. F302. Oh, look at the top one. You can see where Boyd borrowed.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So I was going through my sketchbooks, and I had like page after page of playing with ideas about the F302. And I'm wondering, I should probably reach out to Brad. I've probably got enough stuff here that we could put together like a book on kind of the design of that ship, because it was a lot of thought went into that thing.
I've been hounding James Robbins for a long time now. And so is his wife, apparently. I would completely be behind that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And playing with ideas about what the stuff, the nose, the pitot tubes, and whatever else it would be that would be on the front. Again, it's a weapon, so it needs pokey bits. So
Yep.
just what those would look like.
Yep.
Thinking about
Landing gear?
around landing gear. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, this is so cool.
So that's the original. So even before I did that CG, even before I did the photoshopping, I just whipped together this quick little pencil sketch here, and this was really about scale.
Got it.
This is again looking at the explosive bolts where the graphics would go. Just thinking about kind of because that's going to get that nose is going to get a lot of screen time. So we were just I was just sort of playing around with what would look good and what would make sense.
Yeah, you want to get certain things really, really right as opposed to just really right.
Yeah,
Yeah, more of that.
yeah. There's more of the explosive bolts there.
Is it a lot of reference material that you're looking at with a lot of our fighters
Absolutely,
before you incorporate?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I do a whole bunch of research about what the actual thing is, and then I just sort of, okay, what's gonna make sense to the viewer, because uh, real is important. Cool trumps real every time,
Hmm.
uh, but ridiculous doesn't help tell the story.
And if
So
we were making hybrid technology for use on Earth, we could be, who knows? They would do this,
absolutely,
unless they were trying to really conceal it.
yeah,
Um,
and the in a like I said, we had these liaisons from the U.S. Air Force, incredibly helpful and very sort of informative and quite engaging and generous with their knowledge. And so we were able to, one of the things that is important in kind of the defense of a nation is that your pilots they're the valuable asset. You want these guys to come back in one piece.
mhm.
And that's where all this safety, and hard learned lessons around safety, like in a crisis, you need the big red shiny candy like button. That's
In case of emergency, break glass.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. And that all came from like painful lessons throughout, World War II and Korea and after that. And it has a powerful as for me, it has a powerful aesthetic. It has this aesthetic of it's defense, right? It has this aesthetic of sort of it's a weapon. It's
hmm,
serious. It's and it's functional. It's highly functional and highly considered. This is something that has undergone a lot of testing and a lot of proving
iterations
iterations. Exactly.
for sure. Yeah, it'd be pretty airtight. Ah, okay. So you were working with kind of that as so did you want to draw one of these just kind of like to give yourself a grounding feel before proceeding further?
I think I was trying to explain to someone someone wasn't getting it.
Okay.
Someone wasn't like, this does not look like a Goa'uld Death Glider. This looks like, I don't know, what are we doing here? And so I think I drew that to sort of show someone in the decision-making chain that this is the idea, that we're taking this language and making a Death Glider using this language. And I think that then they were sort of like, oh, okay.
Is that an Aquadria hyperdrive on the side of it? I mean, that's you because you had those, in there for a while. It kind of has that shape in it. I was wondering if you
Yes,
borrowed
actually,
that.
that's a god. I think that's pretty much. I just drew that from memory, but I think that's pretty much what the F-117. That's the jet intake on the side there,
Oh, okay. Got
and
it.
it's screened. And that's why it was subsonic. It was because there was a limit as to how much air it could take in,
Makes sense.
and so that was actually the screen in front of the jet intake.
Got it. Wow. Ancient super weapon activation. Okay, so I think this is Anubis. At the in
Yes,
full circle. The
yeah, and
flower.
exactly. And that's just one of those things where I had not looked at this sketch in 15 years, and I
Mm.
opened the page and I'm like, huh, that's kind of cool. So I've just included it for people to enjoy.
It was one of those things I think that was so awesome about that ship because we don't really see it from above except for a couple of shots. Um, in Full Circle, it expands and unfolds and does its thing. And then in, I think, Fallen, they try to do the same thing. And then we see the ship in Homecoming and we see it again in Stargate Continuum, and we never see that feature again. And a lot of work went into this, especially the model in the end with all these kinds of layers and everything. It was just
Mm.
such a good, it had docking ports for Goa'uld ships all around its equator. You know, we never got to see any of that. It was really thought through and could have gotten a lot of mileage out of it. And we just see it for a few scenes.
Hmm. And that happens sometimes, but it sticks in people's imaginations. So I'm going to say mission accomplished.
For sure.
So this was the I think this was the Earth machine, or the sort of details for the Kelowna
Oh, the
digger.
digger. Yeah.
Yeah. And I can't recall if this was the final design, but you can see there where we've got we've got the caterpillar tracks on all sides,
Yes.
and there was an idea for a kind of a digger head that would be a rotating drill with rotating cutter heads. I grew up in Alberta, which is oil country, and so these kind of a drill head is not how you imagine it looks. It's basically three kind of things and they rotate.
Yeah, they're cutting stuff out. So, yeah.
It rotates and rotates, and I sort of was playing with that idea.
Wow. Cool. To the
And
core.
to the core, yeah. And for in this, I had gone to a gallery, an art show in I think it might have been Paris,
Hmm.
and I picked up this postcard, and I'm just like, oh, that could be the layers of the planet Kelowna. So I just a lot of my stuff is I do very kind of simple collages, as well as illustrate, as well as kind of sketches.
I remember from the core. We've got diamonds. Diamonds. I want some.
I gotta watch that again. I just saw Stanley Tucci in Conclave on the weekend, and what a presence,
He's
hey?
amazing in anything he
He's a
does.
little guy, but he just like dominates the screen. It's
Uh-huh. I think one
cool.
enforces the other or reinforces the other. Armin Shimmerman is the same way. You
Yeah,
know, you will pay attention to him when he's on screen. It's just like, man.
absolutely, absolutely. So this was the Stasis pod. I can't remember the episode.
Yes, this
It's
is oh God, it was right there with me. So you designed legs for them to stand on when they took
exactly,
it inside. The
yeah,
long
exactly
goodbye.
the long goodbye. And so this was that's actually one of the design that long goodbye pod. I was really sort of happy with how that turned out. But you can see my clever design meant you couldn't put it on a table.
Right, for sure.
See, this is the thing, right? You're like, this is why you don't get the producers designing the stuff, because if okay, it's gonna be flat, it's gonna be, and everyone's like, oh, oh, sorry, was that the exciting moment? So, I designed this, like I said, like I had the spaceship with all the interesting stuff in the bottom. So I designed this pod where you've got this beautiful, and then you've got this kind of, uh, you know, sweeping shape underneath. And it's like, okay, so what do we put it on? Well, let's design some space legs. You know?
One has to fit into the other. And I have been talking with my buddy Martin McLean. He always talks about his tendency to over design things,
Mhm.
overthink through stuff. And at the end of the day, Occam's razor kind of dictates for him the simplest was the best. It may not have been arrived at first, and he discarded it at number 8 or number 9, but he did come back around to it. So, it's,
There's an apocryphal, if I can use that word,
yeah.
story where if you're in a challenging situation with a decision maker, you'll present 5 images, 6, and they'll be like, no, 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 no. And then after about 8, you go back to, oh, and okay, last one, and it's the first one, and you've resubmitted the first one, and enough time has passed that they're like, oh yeah, this is good. So
John Godetsky has admitted to on this show at some point, um, once or twice, never frequently, uh, inserting a couple of things into shots that someone could say, "Oh yeah, you need to go and fix that," so he can check them. There seems to be sometimes people in the production process, especially at the studio at the top, who, and you'll occasionally come across this kind of person, who need things to point out to justify the existence of their position. And so there's a term for it. I forget what he was, where they would add something occasionally and just make note of it to remember in the final product to take it out if they missed it.
yeah, and you have to write it down that like, okay, if they don't miss it, we got to take it out. Otherwise, it's going to be like, what are we doing? In architecture, we used to call that cheese. Little cheese crumbs. He's called them cheese crumbs. So that
For the rats.
So that, well, no, not the red, the mouse that's, the developer's brother-in-law that, it's like,
Yeah, they're coming in, to visit, and they're like, "What do you think?" "Oh, yeah, my mother's brother-in-law said this. You really should implement it." "Oh, okay. Well, yeah, then I'll just delete that anyway." Scratch it off.
so you put in the cheese crumbs. That's I am not at what I do is Brad would sniff out that cheese in a moment.
Bet he would.
You're not putting anything past him, right? So
Yeah.
I suspect Brad probably did that as well in like the final edits or something. Like, he actually probably had things that he could lose to kind of get the timing down, and sort of, and still get in the things that he wanted.
Yep. It's so much politics.
So much
and
politics.
just backstroking. And
Exactly.
I will admit, on designing the hardcover books for the PropWorks catalog, Damaris, the designer, and I, she was very intense, and she enjoyed praise. So man, I would butter her up if I wanted her to make an adjustment for me, because I wanted her to also be inclined to acknowledge my perspective as well. And it wasn't bullshit per se, but it was just a little extra on the top, so that when it came around for me to give my input, I had a road in, and she always moved forward with it, because I felt that was only fair. She was very good, but I also wanted to make sure that my ideas would be considered, and she was receptive to it. So you when you're dealing with a person, you find a way to make it work one way or the other, and hopefully, remain as genuine and human as possible. Because you're going to deal with all kinds of people.
People can sniff that insincerity out. Some people can. A lot of people can't. The way I sort of the kind of the mental the framework that I sort of explain these things, I talk about friendships or a workplace, is that it's an ecosystem.
Yeah.
Right? And an ecosystem functions at different levels.
Yeah.
And not every part of that ecosystem is going to be a lush, verdant orchard with glistening fruit. Some of it is going to be the scraggly, gravelly, gross, patchy gravel down the road that serves but that, ugly, covered with like weeds and stuff, but that provides the drainage for the orchard.
That's right. It has function.
It has fun. Not everything can be, the top of the top of the food chain. And so if you can bring that to your work and to your work relationships, I mean, sometimes it's really hard. Some people are just absolutely very, very insecure about their role and what they're doing, and doubting themselves, and by extension doubting you. And I've been in painful. I've created brilliant work, and everything has been shot down, and you're just like, mother of God, okay, so here's this, and they're like, yeah, that'll work.
Okay.
You're like,
okay.
And that's what was kind of magical about, Stargate wasn't, it wasn't a holiday. Like we were producing 22 episodes of TV a year. There
Yeah.
was a lot of stress, a lot of demands, a lot of conflicting goals, a lot of miscommunicate, a lot of, it was a lot of back and forth,
Like any space,
like any
but
space.
there were, based on the people that I've communicated with over the years, there were more adults in the room than not, you know.
Exactly.
John Smith, I think, fired 2 people in the entire, time that he was there internally. So I mean, it was small. It was a small number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and there was a clear vision at the top. And that really sort of uh gives that takes a huge pressure off. Like, when you're on a show with like 17 co-executive producers and 7 co-executive writers,
I know.
you pretty much know that show is doomed.
Yeah.
And I've seen it. I've been on amazingly high budget, high concept shows that have withered on the vine
Hmm.
because there's no one at the top with a clear set. Not, it doesn't have to be one person.
Hmm.
It could be a couple of people, but it has to be, 3 people or less that are like, this is where we're going with this.
Yeah.
It's sometimes if it's just one person, if the show is just the one person's vision, that can be as equally dysfunctional.
Wow. Depends
You
on the
know,
person.
it depends on the person. Yeah. That I threw that in there just to again, I like a big fan of process. So
Hmm.
you can see with the pod here how I started quite complex. And like you said, this Occam's razor, right? Look,
Hmm.
you've got the cooling fins. You've got a number of air intakes and hoopla, and in the end, I just I'm pretty sure subconsciously I think a lot of my design is inspired by I think Ferrari race cars.
Yeah, nothing
Uh,
wrong with that.
and I think this pod actually that kind of that line, that sort of gap between the two, the top and the bottom shells,
Hmm.
that line, that is pretty much, I think, inspired by I think the 512 BB, the Boxer Berlinetta. So
Wow. Hello there. EE
yes,
friendly. Alien and everything.
friendly but deadly. So this is an idea of I had for I think it was it might have been during the hiatus. So these are these creatures, and they have their legs are actually, if you zoom in, they're actually like thumbs with like hair on the knuckles. And the idea is that this is kind of a, yeah, you can see there, you can see the thumbnail.
You totally can. Uh,
And so the idea is that, you've got this, alien creature in this mech, but he's like a pilot. He's just like this little kind of potatoy blob, and the actual the mech is completely separate from what the creature can actually do physically.
oh my God.
And there's a little quote on the top of that page. And what does it say? It says, Dad, did going to architecture school help you draw robots, Dad? So I think William would have been about 5. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's just again, the same guy playing with. I never pursued, although, in another uh, in another universe, maybe there would have been a role for me in, in CG or visual effects, character design. I never really pursued that because when I got into film, I was already into my 30s, and I had a mortgage. I had
Got to make it work.
very small children, and I I valued um, art direction because it allowed me to um, do a number of things. I love drawing. I love 3D modeling, but I also love, working with people and building real things. And things have come around. Things are sort of, there seems to be much more of an equilibrium now where a lot of the digital world has been brought back into the real world,
Mm-hmm.
with the volume stages and 3D printing, 3D milling. They will actually build the object in real time, photograph it, and then they'll do the kind of compositing after, like in claymation now, where
Mm-hmm.
they'll like you've got the actual, it's all claymation, and then they just remove the armatures and
Right.
add backgrounds.
It's
But
like
the
we've
actual,
taken the best of each design choice and technology and just used it for removal over here and something else over here. So
yeah, because one of the problems with visual effects and CG, no offense, John, no offense. But what was happening is we would design all this stuff and then we would hand it over to a vendor, and then it would all be, and then it would be technicians. And a lot of the spirit, a lot of the energy, a lot of the kind of would get lost. And so in relation to kind of performance and stuff, the more you can do sort of in front of the camera,
mm-hmm.
even if it requires later kind of playing with editing and the data, it just gives you more. It gives you a kind of more control, and I think a better product. And so when I was, back when I was on Stargate, there was a lot of push towards, doing everything visual effects, and there was a sterility to what the product that was being produced, because it was so separate from the actual the filming.
Mm.
And I remember in particular, I was on we did a Netflix movie for a release of Halo. It was included with the Halo box set. It was called Halo Forward Onto
Oh
Dawn.
wow.
And the production designer was a young guy at the time, Kazra Farhani, and very, very talented young guy. And we had produced this amazing, amazing interior. And he had, he was coming up from Los Angeles, and he was bringing some of that idea about bringing the digital age into the practical age. So we had a lot of our the flooring and a lot of these kind of really ornate surfaces that would be very, very expensive and time consuming if they're hand painted. We actually created them in Photoshop, printed them, and then covered them in like an acrylic or almost like an epoxy finish. It was ironclad. So you had this amazing depth of texture and feeling, but it had been, made in a computer, but then printed in the real life, instead of, a gray screen and then kind of mapping it over and all the problem that causes. So we had just finished this incredible, I guess you'd call it, sorry, Kaserne in German. I guess you'd say it's the barracks. It was the barracks. And I was walking it with the visual effects coordinator, who was LiDAR scanning it for the scenes. And he
Wow.
walked around and he looks around and he sighs and he goes, "This is what pixels can't do."
Yeah.
And you could just see the longing
Yeah.
and the awe that that my team were producing things IRL,
Yeah.
in meat space.
Yeah.
And
And when was this? What year was this?
oh, this was maybe 2006, 2007.
Yeah.
So again, like I said, things have, there's way more visual effects now than there's ever been, but the partnership between the digital world and the real world, they've started to figure that out a little
Mm-hmm.
bit, I think, more kind of. And I think I really, a lot of credit goes to I think a lot of credit goes to Nathan Crowley and Interstellar, the amount of stuff that they did practically on Interstellar, and practically in like air quotes, like we're not going back to like Godzilla movies, right? Where the rock slide of foam rocks that are
No,
bouncing.
everything is definitely upped its game for the most
Yeah,
part. It's that
yeah. So
triad
we're
of good, cheap, and good, cheap, and fast. Yeah,
good, cheap, yeah, good,
and
cheap. Picking,
sometimes, unless it's like a sci-fi movie of the week, there's your chances are you're going to have two of the three. So
and it's funny because nowadays, like in the old days, oh wow, they're doing things with computers. Nowadays, it's the shows that have money are doing things practical.
For sure.
We just finished an incredible TV limited series for Apple TV, and it's coming out sometime in June.
You
I
can't announce the name.
I can't announce the
Okay.
name. I don't think they've, but incredible amount of practical effects,
Wow.
and with a stellar cast and incredible a show a creator producer who's just kind of this visionary sort of genius, and more work than I like. It was more work than Shogun. Oh my God.
Wow. That's saying something. All right.
But that's the stuff that really I love about sort of my work is that I'm in my head, I'm on the computer, but I'm also in the real world.
Wow. Absolutely. Oh, that's that one. Okay. So let's move over to SGA. This is one of my favorite props from the entire show. And they went with green. You designed blue. So going
They
back to
did go with
that.
green. That is true. And
Yeah.
I said, I don't know how David Reed's going to feel about this 15 years from now. And
Of course you did. No, I would have preferred this color. Absolutely.
that sketch there, I was just, hand rendering as a final was kind of in its death throes. Everything was being done with Photoshop, including my work,
Wow.
But for this one, I was just like, you know what? It's going to be hand carved. Let's do a hand illustration.
I own one. It's been out of my
Yeah.
hands for almost 2 years now because someone's wanting to turn it in to make replicas of it. But it's technically on. I technically have it. It's the one with the batteries inside of it, and
That was hand
really
carved.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah, that was a
absolutely
hand
beautiful
prop,
piece.
and so I was like, well, I'm very pleased. I'm very pleased.
It got a lot of mileage. And come on, button. And button is not working. Hang on just a second here. Let me fix. See why. Use hotkeys to control slideshow. Yes, so why don't you button? One moment, Peter. I'm sorry. I have to go to yellow alert here. God's sakes. Slide.
Another Star Trek reference. I love this, man. You got the
Oh, I got him.
Thosian web. Thor,
The Tholian web?
yeah, Tholian web, and now yellow alert. Nicely done.
What was the Tholian web?
Tholian web was those little ships that
No,
were
what did I
drawn.
say? That
We were talking about the shuttle,
Oh, okay, fair point. Yes.
and a beautiful segue, buddy. You nailed it.
The Genii archive. No, is it the Genii archive? No, this
Genii
is
archives.
the,
Yeah.
No, it's the. I want to get the species right. This is the Hoffans.
Oh,
Hoffan
okay.
archive, because this is the. They were making the drug to knock out the Wraith, and they were preserving, archiving their people's knowledge for the future. So this is one of the ways they were preserving their culture. Very cool.
So this is the other side of that last. So here I am sort of flexing. So the last sketch, that's 100% hand drawn out of my head, right? This is which is done nowadays is painting over top of photo scrapping. So the ceiling is actually probably from the Henri Labrouste library in Paris.
Oh, wow. So you don't even have to create it.
And well, I think I took the form
Oh, I
from
see what you're saying. Okay, so you did create that. You didn't just
yeah, I
install it
took
into
the
the
form.
picture.
I took the
Okay.
form, and then I sort of painted it. I took that form and made a painting based on that form, and then I took textures, concrete textures from various images, and just kind of layered sort of. And that's kind of the way it's done now because it's very efficient. One of the problems with this method, though, is it always creates there's kind of a uniformity to how kind of a lot of sort of artwork is looking these days, right?
What do you
Because
mean?
of I think that there's a lot of uh, the photorealism is kind of the default now, and I've always been a big fan of the marker renderings that
Yeah.
the seven. I've got a collection, a thumbnail somewhere on my computer of like marker concept work for Pontiac grills from like the late 60s, early 70s. Back when the Pontiac was a performance brand. It was targeted to young men. And so you had all these kind of like this concept artwork for possible kind of Pontiac grills, and every one of them was just like smoking cool.
Not to derail us too much about like the marker look, but you must have loved Wild Robot. Absolutely brilliant film.
I've seen it.
You must see it. You will
Yes,
love it.
like I said, the William and his giant robot dog. That
Hmm.
guy is now 22, and he's so I'm gonna have to watch the Wild Robot on my own.
No,
But
I
I
think
think I
he might enjoy it. I'm 41 and I watched it with my folks and they loved it. So
okay. I'm gonna
yeah,
add that to the list.
it was
Thank you.
very
Good
good.
suggestion.
Hello, Puddle Jumper. Yes, so this is much more angular and yeah, it's meaner.
And smaller, and yeah, that's not a you're not taking a crew of people around. You got two guys, and they're heading to Alpha Centauri for the weekend, and so that was my initial based on um, Bridget's concept. That was and there you can see at that very top section, you
Hmm.
can see the rake of the nose, and kind of how it fits and it was oval, it wasn't round, and you can see its relationship to the Stargate there.
And you were playing with inverting the engine pods.
Yes, yes. I was playing with a lot of stuff. Again, the I think the original. I personally think that this. I think there's a lot of legs to what's happening here,
Hmm.
but you can see how there's like an outer shell and then an inner body. You can if you see in the sort of orthogonal view there, where the outer shell is actually quite a bit outboard of the actual
Yeah,
part
it's like a
that
huge
carries weight.
carapace.
It's like a carapace. That beautiful. All these things I stand by. I think they're would have been very, very kind of effective in sort of telling the story. But the fundamental thing is that this, like I said, this was a it was like was it the TARDIS? It was like the TARDIS. We had to get a bunch of people in this thing, and it was sort of, it wasn't my concept of it as a hot rod. It didn't survive all the production requirements.
And you leaning into the idea of the TARDIS is really accurate because the one that was on location and where the exterior was generally seen, I think was 1/3 smaller, if I'm not
20%.
mistaken.
20%. Yeah.
20%, so
Yep.
1/5.
There was, so it was
It had to fit on a truck.
a little too much. Our interior set was, it was a little bit, wow, this thing's way big. Things,
Yeah.
wow, these puddle jumpers are really roomier than they look.
You got to
Well,
sell it, you know? And
yeah.
the thing that I love about this is you could have seen these sister designs if they had gone to movies begin to appear in other bases that we might have found, other ancient bases, because I can't believe that in it was however many thousands of years Atlantis and those things were in service, they never had other designs for different types of service craft. We never really saw an ancient fighter, so to speak. They would have had them. They would have. They would have. I believe that the ancient warships would have been equipped with them, but maybe they just had a puddle jumper and it just covered everything. So
Well, also too, I mean, this is an ancient society. I mean, how much Roman stuff do we actually have,
oh
right?
gosh,
We got a few buttons and a bent sword, and
yeah,
guys produced a lot of stuff. So there's stuff out there that we just haven't found yet. So
it's
if
beneath the earth.
Brad is listening, and he's thinking about that, the SGU movie. I'm, you know,
Absolutely. Give me a call. Very
yeah.
good. Lantean planetary defense vehicles. So speaking, it's
Yes.
very interesting. I did not do this on purpose. So you were going for that.
Exactly, exactly. It's like, wait a minute, you mean Atlantis are the Lanteans, and they
Yes.
are whole, and this is even before I knew I don't know if the word lore was used the way it is now, but my head was always spinning with lore and what the kind of physical uh what's the physical result of all this like my it's pretty funny. I have a high school. My youngest son is in high school right now, and we play Dungeons and Dragons as a family. And
You know how to have a good time, don't you?
and oh my God, it's you know what Dungeons
Oh,
and Dragons is high school is homework the game for me. It's
it's
really good.
cool.
I'm an artist, but my kids they just love it. And anyway, my son is lore is big for him. He plays Destiny, and he's very knowledgeable about sort of all the kind of backstories with that. And so even before, and I guess what, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, because that's what I was doing. We'd be talking about, and I'd be like, what would that look like?
Hmm.
And then I'd just start playing.
This is the way that this is for a reason. It has history in whatever
Exactly.
world that it existed in.
Exactly, and you can see that there's that ancient technology, that ancient sort of vibe there with kind of the way the kind of the surface treatment and the angularity. This I love
Radical
this one.
difference design.
Yeah, yeah. I was like, I nailed it. Brad's gonna love this. And, and then and again you can see my fondness for I think Thunderbirds and
Hmm.
1999. If you look closely, you'll see there's some whiteout there where I think I was playing with shape, and then I changed my mind and I got in there with the whiteout to kind of change
Oh, I
the
see. Yeah.
and you can see in the section there, it's shockingly the section profile is not unlike the Galileo 7 space shuttle from
Yeah,
TOS.
for sure.
Anyway, Brad looked at this and he's like, "Wow, this is awesome, but this is not our show."
Yeah, it looks like a
And
submersible. This three-quarter view.
yeah, and I was always a big fan of submersibles as a kid. I always thought they were just so the shape and the design of them were so fascinating. So yeah, that was an early pitch. That was before we had a chance to think about, and I think that has that sort of, it has that shuttle, that weaving shuttle shape
Yes.
that Bridget was working with. But again, it wasn't. It was a little too much. Not our universe.
Yeah, this is dated '03, so this was pretty early on.
I still like it though.
Oh, absolutely.
There's playing again with the Lantean ships.
It's like the Arrow shuttle from the USS Voyager, which was never actually seen on camera. You could just only see the bottom of it on the bottom of the primary hull. But very, very similar evoking. These wings, this all like single piece, the engine in the back, the passenger pod in the front. Very cool.
Mhm. Well, we call it the oral tradition of science fiction, where you'll subconsciously absorb all these things you've watched,
Hmm.
and they'll show up years later, and you'll not even realize it, and then you'll be like, "Oh, hey." I mean, it's still creative and original and interesting, and speaks to the show that you're working on. But there's certain things that are understandable to the viewer, and as a kid you were the viewer, right? And so
Hmm.
those a lot of that stuff kind of gets brought forward.
Well, when you're watching something, you want people to be sucked into the story, not blown out of it. I was doing a lot of editing with something else a few days ago, and I realized, yes, this is a great cut, but the eye needs to focus and adjust. So the beat needs to move. So if I'm showing you something and it's only on screen for a limited period of time, you better darn be sure you have time to assimilate it instead of going, wait, what is that? What? No, it's gone now. Now I just missed it. What was that? I don't know what's going on. Now I'm out of it. Now it's over. So there has to be certain design shortcuts that make sense, especially with whatever species you're dealing with, because that also connects to what the mind is anticipating if it's something we've seen before.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's like because film, television is first and foremost it's theater, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to, there's these theatrical conventions that are sometimes they're some people, you could say some of these things are sort of arbitrary or sort of culturally specific, whatever. I think there's a lot of stuff though is like hardwired in us, right?
Like sound in space, we just accept it when we watch it on television, and when it's absent, we go, "I'm missing something." The music has to be really good if
Or
you're going to replace it.
Spaceships banking in this air and space.
Oh my gosh, that's so true. Yeah, thrusters, man, thrusters.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, there we go.
That's another ancient tech console pitch. That one was it was going to be a big light. Again, I think I don't know. I like that one, but that one they didn't go for it. You can see the beginnings of the grand pianos on the top right there. You can see I think we're moving towards the piano here. That's the grand piano.
Yeah, those shapes for sure evoke that. McKay's High School Science Fair A-bomb. He described this in one of his in one of the episodes. Very funny, and you envisioned it.
I did. What would his high school A-bomb look like? Well, I don't think it would have I don't think it would be designed as a delivery system, but I did that anyway because I thought it was kind of cool.
I would see McKay going the extra mile, and I think it had, if I'm mistaken, I could be thinking of another story, but it probably had something to do with how he got involved with the government to begin with. It's like, okay, we're taking you. We don't want you to get bad ideas going another way. So who knows who will hire you?
Exactly.
I think this is the mechanism that held Atlantis to the ocean floor, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's the seabed clamp. Yeah.
And Before I Sleep, it's mentioned that the city is not just sitting on the bottom; it's being held down. And we've never gotten a chance to see this. So, and look at that! It's the snowflake shape for each pier. It has a pylon. That is so cool, Peter. And all the little fishies.
Man, Bridget was the kind of this sort of snowflake crystalline theme was her idea, and I was like, "What a great idea! What can we do with this?"
Yeah, Antarctica. There's all kind of callbacks, so it just works.
Yeah, and that's an example of playing with sort of computer and hand rendering.
Oh, this one or this one?
The seabed clamp.
Yes.
Seabed clamp.
I see on the right. Yes.
Right, where I sort of just did the marker rendering, and I think I did the highlights with like grease pencil or something.
Very cool. All right, here's the Daedalus forward view envisioned, looking at the Milky Way or some such.
Something like that, Andromeda Galaxy, something cool.
Yeah.
You can see how we've widened it, and we're getting to see the heavens a bit more than we were with the Prometheus. This is at a time I had in architecture in the kind of the 90s and into the early 2000s. There was a big thing in presentation drawings where they were already layering. We're putting you'd layer the section on top of the view, and that was very, very exciting for architects, but created a lot of confusion in film. So I only did it for very specific situations, and this was one of them.
There she is.
Here's our Daedalus.
Wow. So James Robbins designed Prometheus.
Mm-hmm.
So I imagine you used that as a starting point, and then went in your direction. So you want to talk about that a little bit?
What I did is I just took just down to the bare bones. So just the central spine and the nose is kind of the only thing that I start. But I modified it significantly. I added that kind of the kind of the prow at the front there.
Yes.
And I started adding the protruding sort of sensors, arrays, and other kind of bits and the stuff sort of at the top as well. So before I even started this, I went to Brad and I'm like, what are we doing? And
Yeah.
he's like, it's an aircraft carrier in space. And I'm like, well, as the designer of the F302, I'm like, I'm down with that. So that's why it has the flat top and the command pod sort of off to one side, sort
Yep.
of
Just like the aircraft carrier does if the planes were to
referencing
one side.
aircraft carrier.
Yeah.
And the kind of the jaggedy stuff at the front is kind of referencing, I think one of the best spaceship designs in science fiction ever is the Sulaco. And
Yes. The gun in
and
space.
it's meta, right?
Mhm.
It's, James Cameron, he's a character, but he's a great, he's a great filmmaker, and he has an understanding about visual storytelling. Like I see production design as visual storytelling. And so the Sulaco, basically it's a Marine, they're the Marines, so basically it's a big gun. Well, this is not that, but it's also a little bit of that. That it has that it has a bit of menace.
And you've got um, design elements from Earth as well, because I'm sure this was your idea. You notice here, and you notice here, folks,
Mm-hmm.
we have an evoking of the Earth symbol down the sides.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Was that
I
your
love
idea?
that. I can't recall. I can't
Okay,
recall.
that's fair. But yeah, each side has at least two. There's one here. My light is terrible. And then there's one over here. And as the ship passes by in the shots, you can really see them. So, but yeah, no, this is my favorite ship design. Now, did they, in your thought process, did they exit here and then return here? Because you got the smaller ones here and here. You got a couple of different kinds.
Well,
What
I
were
was
those
trying to
smaller
actually.
bays
I've
for?
got the look at this. I got the original sketch
Oh,
right
let me pull
there.
this up. All right.
So I think that's what I was. Yeah, I think that's what I was thinking. I was doing a bit of the idea is that they would launch from the smaller uh, nacelles and then return to the larger
I see. So that
larger
they
nacelles.
wouldn't have to like turn around they could go through like a track and then come back out. All right.
Exactly. That you want when you're landing, you want to give them some. You need lots of. When you're launching, it's like it's like the steam catapult on the
Yep.
aircraft carrier, right? If you look at an aircraft carrier, the actual launching part of it is actually a third of the deck, right? You've got the catapults and however many yards and good luck,
Away they
lads.
go. Yeah.
They go. But the actual landing, the landing deck off to the angled there is much more with all the cables to catch the aircraft. You've got to provide a lot more forgiving environment for getting it back. And that's kind of the approach here, where when they're being launched, it's a very specific narrow thing, and when they're returning, you've got to give them a little bit of real estate.
Where do you envision the bridge? Is it here, or
Uh, you know, the,
is it here?
the bridge is, if I can sort of see, does this work? Bridge is right there. That's your
Okay.
bridge.
Oh, in the front there, that little piece. Okay, very good. Very nice. Yeah, that's one of the things that always frustrated me about Star Trek and frankly about this is that if we're that close to the window, we would see the nose of the ship. But we keep it out of it because we want to be able to see the action of what's going on. And I get the trade-off.
That's why we built that big the dash, kind of on the bottom of the window, right? Is to
It's
kind of
right under that.
yeah. So,
Okay.
and that was my initial concept for the Prometheus as well, was I had a whole bunch of stuff built out on the deck.
Got it.
And so yeah, it's one of those compromises that
Hmm.
if it was a high budget feature, we definitely would have been addressed.
Yeah, because as if the camera moved, unless it was a locked shot, if the camera moved, the orientation of the shape would shift, as
Yeah.
it went around. So, yeah, the farther things go, the The more,
But that's one of the things why the bridge is in that kind of raised is the
I
idea that it's
see.
kind of it's a higher and you have to like go to the edge to look down to actually see the ship.
Very cool. Yeah, I would love a signed copy of that, Peter. Whatever you want. Okay, so a redesign of the systems consoles.
Yes, and so again, I start big and then kind of work my way back. This I think we've already actually I think I've actually started to simplify it a bit. I think there's a few other ones that show it kind of yeah, there we go. So that's kind of starting with a little more kind of expressiveness and budget, far more budget than we had, and then I simplified it considerably, but the that kind of the pod, that sort of curved pod at the front sort of survived all the edits, so that was good. Yeah, that was kind of that was the original sort of uh, concept there. A little bit I had a little bit of fun with that, a little bit um, military, Sid Mead maybe.
Hey, go big or go home.
Mhm.
You can always dial it back.
Exactly, exactly. And then
Ah,
the again another sort of playing with the console.
okay. Ronan's knives.
Ronan's knife, yeah, he uh so the oh my gosh, very famous actor now.
Jason.
Jason
Jason
Momoa,
Momoa.
yeah.
Yeah.
Jason was like he showed us this picture of this knife and he's like, I want a knife like this. And we're like, you bet, Jason. So we made
Wow.
that. That is an example of sort of this would have all been for I think this
Trinity.
was the ancient reactor.
Yes.
Just kind of this drawing was just to explain to visual effects what we're actually doing. That the reactor would be inside this giant sphere and that we would be looking at it from this little window, kind of, I think I've indicated it there.
Wow.
So there's a lot of invented or played with or imagined engineering in what we did.
With the title, are you invoking threes in this? Like sets of threes?
Uh, I don't, yeah, I
Like the
don't
top
know.
left there, you've got three on one side and three on the other. Um,
I think that must have been subconscious. I think
okay.
it was just more about the kind of, well, I was working with the tessellated sphere that's made up of the triangles. So
Okay.
that's where that come from.
Yeah. Jeffrey's tube.
Yeah, and this was actually one of my favorite sort of interactive pieces was they take the panel off and inside is this very sort of sleek and possibly electronics, possibly mechanical, we're not sure. Um, and I was really happy with that. And that one I started with just a graphic layout. I did a graphic layout, handed it off to Boyd, and then we CC milled it and
Wow.
hooked the lighting, and yeah, it turned out I was pretty happy with that.
The things that you guys pulled off with these, especially these backlit LED panels, was so cool. I mean, the Daedalus, so much of the Daedalus is that it's a piece of plexi with CNC milled like lines into it, and when you hit those at a certain angle with the LED boards, they light up, and it's just so cool how the accents just take off when you do that.
Yeah, and that was, we had, like I said, with this amazing sort of team where, so I would come up with these concepts and then I'd hand them off to Boyd, and Boyd would be like, I got this.
Wow.
And then we'd be working with really talented vendors, and we were doing like a lot of 3D milling is very, very expensive, but 2D cutting is much more kind of economic. So what we did is we would build up a series of 2D elements to create kind of
3D
the
effect.
effects that we were looking for.
Wow. Yeah, same chamber. I was on a set before this was struck. I saw this there, and that was really cool. You got the
Wow.
Atlantis chiclets at the bottom and at the top.
Atlantis chiclets. So that
Yep.
thing came. Okay, I don't. I guess I didn't realize that came back. That's actually one of my favorite sets. I really was happy with how that came together.
Yeah. Very cool set. Yeah, there you go. It's kind of taken off.
Yes.
Epiphany, the domed ancient uh, world where on the inside time moves much, much slower.
Okay. Okay. So that's an example again, sort of flexing a bit with hand drawing. So that was drawn completely freehand.
Wow. I'm
So the
impressed. That's really cool.
perspective work and the sort of kind of landscaping that was all just sort of pencil and pen and going at it.
You have to wonder what would a planet look like if, part of it changed rapidly and the other part of it didn't. How would the exterior respond to that? And you really evoke that in this image.
Mm.
So,
And then two concepts is the dome black and then the dome transparent
yeah.
and the dismal sky in the background.
The sea creature.
Mhm.
I forget what they named this. What were you? I mean, I see catfish. I see whale.
That's it. That's pretty much it. That's a catfish, a whale, and a Koliath, whatever. There's a uh, ancient sort of fish that has a kind of a tail like that. So yeah, that was a kind of a catfish, a whale, maybe a little bit of a whale shark, and then these kind of kind of prehistoric fish.
Hmm. I'm trying. I think that it's canon, but it's called a flagosaurus.
Hmm.
Is its name
Poor guy.
right? The pods. There we go.
Yeah. So that's the final design of the pod.
Inferno, the Orion Hanger, or the Hippophoralcus,
Yeah.
named after the general.
Yes. So again, I that one again, I was just playing with just using designing in 3D. So that was all like 3D from scratch. And then I was quite surprised. I went online and oh my God, it's there and it's exactly
Wow.
exactly as I designed it.
Were you able to? Was the light rig casting the shadows? Was that all in the computer at the time?
Yeah, yeah, that was all done with the computer program.
Wow.
And I did everything black and white because I was one of the problems with at this stage is if you start adding too many textures and colors, it takes away from the what you're trying to sort of so at this stage, I want to make sure they're happy with the shape, they're happy with the scale, they're happy with the proportions, and then we can start playing with color and texture.
Wow. So there, I don't have any drawings of the Orion itself. Was that we just don't have those?
That's the only thing that I kept was
I
that
see.
that
Okay. Very cool. All right. So we're moving to the season 2 finale, Allies.
Mhm.
In this case, the Wraith, the Royal Wraith shuttle was launched from Daedalus rather than launched from the Hive ship down to Atlantis.
Yeah. So
Very
this
cool.
is uh, so again, the wraith with kind of the bone structure and the kind of anthropomorphic shapes. This one we're evoking, Sulaco, where you've got sort of these kind of maw with all these teeth and these sort of dead eyes.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
This one I tried to go a little more. Again, this is an example of kind of iterations. I think I did a bunch of these. This one is a little more kind of really, carrying the kind of bone motif a little
Mm-hmm.
bit farther. This one, I'm not sure what I was doing with that one. I wasn't happy with it at all, but I stuck it in to show you. Sometimes you can't get it right every time.
No, failure can always lead to some interesting places, including eventually success.
Hmm. And
Delicate
that's kind
shuttle.
of so this is sort of where we were again playing with scale here.
Uh-huh.
You can see the F302 kind of alongside for reference.
Yeah, the 302s were ultimately fairly comparable in size to the shuttle at the end.
Yeah, and this is we're playing with this is kind of early days. I was playing with this kind of double layer of hull.
I love the shot in Allies where the ship comes down and the 302s come side by side. We've never really seen them at low speed in atmosphere before, and then once they're down, they part and take off. It's a really cool shot.
That's cool. And that's the final design that I pitched. I'm not sure I think the actual ship was quite different from this, but this
Yeah.
was this was my final pitch as the Wraith Royal shuttle.
Wow. So cool. Now look at this. We were talking a little bit earlier about obsidian,
Mhm.
being cut from glass, volcanic glass. This really has that kind of look and feel to it. Was this earlier than the ultimate design, or was this? Tell me where this fell in the process.
This was after the ultimate design.
I
This
see.
was I sort of later on in the season. I just sort of decided I was gonna let's finish. What would this look like landing in hostile atmosphere? And that's what I came up with.
I love the debris. It's really evoking movement.
Yeah, that kind of that violence of landing, right?
Uh huh.
With the jets. That's I think one of the earlier pencil concepts of what it might look like. I guess that would be I think it's like pen, pencil, marker.
Mm-hmm. That's it. Back
That's
from the
it.
beginning.
Okay.
This has been a thrill for me. I really appreciate you being so thoughtful about taking me through each of the pieces that you have designed and showing how they connect to the grander lore of what it is that you're working with. I can see your passion. I can see your determination in getting it right, and your willingness to play here and there and coming up with some more zany things, especially the robot stuff. I really appreciate, and the aliens with the thumb hands, the the thumb feet. That's really cool. Thank you for being willing to share so much. It's meant a lot to me.
Well, my pleasure, David. I think that Stargate it means so much to a lot of people, and to me as well. And I just wanted to sort of be able to sort of show that it's you don't get it right the first time,
Right.
and you need to sort of figure things out. And sometimes you get it right, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you hit it on the first try, like with the F302. That was like that emerged, that was all that was there ready to go.
So that was the one that was right on the first try.
Yeah, it was the one that was right on the first try. And there's been a few others, but there's been some that, like with the Royal Shuttle, like that was a lot of backing and forthing. And then I think finally even the final product was still not quite what we were, envisioning.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure, David. Thank you.
I appreciate you taking the time, sir. That was Peter Bodnarus, art director for Stargate SG-1 and Stargate Atlantis. We had such a good time with him the first time around, and he really did not disappoint this time. Really, thank you, Peter, for the amount of time that you were willing to spend this, especially this time around, to get all these thoughts out. Some really tremendous things I learned in this episode as well. You think that you have all the information. Sometimes it's like, There's a reason for that, and I never even thought of it before. Before we go, if you enjoy Stargate and you want to see more content like this on YouTube, it'd be mean a lot to me if you click the like button. It really makes a difference with the show and will continue to help us grow our audience. Please also consider sharing this video with a Stargate friend, and if you want to get notified about future episodes, click the subscribe icon. And giving the bell icon a click will notify you the moment a new video drops, and you'll get my notifications of any last-minute guest changes. And clips from this episode will be released over the course of the next few weeks on both the Dial the Gate and GateWorld.net YouTube channels. My tremendous thanks to my production team, Anthony Rowling, Kevin Weaver, and Linda Gategaber Fury, my moderators, Anthony, Jeremy, Kevin, Lockwatcher, Marcia, Raj, Summer, and Tracy. Thank you guys for all that you do. And big thanks over to Concepts Web, Frederick Marcoux, who keeps Dial the Gate up and running. I can't do the show without these folks. At least not as competently as I occasionally manage to pull it off. So it means the world to me to have you guys. DialTheGate.com has all the information on upcoming guests and episodes, so check it out. That's where even I go to make sure that I have everything correct, because the schedule, the master schedule, that's where we pull it from. That's where it goes first and last. My name is David Reed for Dial the Gate. I appreciate you tuning in, and I will see you on the other side.